dialogue today is entitled Sustainability and Prosperity, How Can They Coexist? Many people believe that prosperity is not compatible with sustainability because they believe it is a zero-sum game and they will have to sacrifice their own economic well-being. David Boyd, UN Special Rapporteur on Human Rights and the Environment, observes this tension as well.
People are not willing, and frankly, in a world where we have 8 billion humans, we simply can't go back to a kind of hunter-gatherer existence. That's simply not a plausible solution, and I don't think there's very many people that would suggest that. So we are in a position because of our population growth where we do need to find technological solutions to some of these problems. We also need social solutions. So, the reality is that not everybody can live like a contemporary American lives, or a contemporary Canadian, or even for that matter, a contemporary German. We need to recalibrate our value systems to value living in harmony with nature and to value greater equality amongst people. But we also need these technological solutions to get us out of the pickle we're in.
However, does making the changes necessary for a sustainable future necessarily mean less prosperity and well-being? Let's begin by examining the meaning of sustainability. Sustainability is not a new concept. It was invented in the 18th century as sustained yield, as part of a long tradition in forestry, in order not to run out of timber in times of scarce supply or high demand. The concept of sustainable development as we know it now arrived on the political agenda via the Club of Rome and its report on the limits to growth in 1972, just before the 1973 oil crisis. This report, drafted by MIT researchers, declared, "We are searching for a model output that represents a world system that is sustainable without sudden and uncontrolled collapse and capable of satisfying the basic material requirements of all of its people." In 1987, the report of the Brundtland World Commission on Environment and Development defined sustainable development as one that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. In other words, sustainable development is economic growth that is forceful and at the same time socially and environmentally sustainable. This also gives us a definition of prosperity. Prosperity means thriving, in particular economic well-being. But not just for a chosen few in the global north and west. Rather, for everyone, everywhere, now and in the future. If this is the future we want, why are we not achieving it? What are the economic and political drivers affecting sustainability and prosperity today? Our current economic model is very good at generating wealth, at least for a few, and at fostering innovation in service of profit. But that wealth is very unequally distributed, and environmental externalities are becoming increasingly risky to ignore. There are several economic drivers which negatively affect sustainability. First, the environmentally sustainable choice is often not economically rational for individuals nor companies. Waste stream, resource utilization, and degradation are not adequately accounted for in the costs and price of products and services, meaning that the more environmentally damaging products and production methods are often the cheapest to produce and purchase. Profits from public goods or common resources are extracted by private companies, but the costs are borne by the public. This separation of environmental costs from the benefits of exploitation is creating a vicious circle, driving inequality, which in turn is driving and exacerbating environmental degradation.
I will say that I do have profound concerns about the developing megacities in the global south. And this comes back to a point that I mentioned at the outset, which is if there's one thing that's gone backwards since I wrote The Optimistic Environmentalist, I would say it's the increasing inequality in today's world, both within countries and between countries. And so, for example, when I went to Nairobi in Kenya, I just had a really difficult time envisioning how that city could transform itself from its current environmentally catastrophic condition into something like a green city in the global north. And so without some fairly massive economic transformations, it's going to be tough times ahead for people living in those megalopolises in the global south. And because of population demographics, that's where the big super cities of the future will be.
There are also political drivers which affect sustainability, even in our democracies. We measure economic growth in GDP, which is not a good measure for prosperity nor sustainability, but which directly influences how politicians and citizens view the success or failure of their policies. Electoral cycles reward short-termism, often focused on economic indicators like GDP growth, inflation and jobs, rather than the longer-term well-being and stability benefits that result from putting a country on a more sustainable path. Digital platforms create echo chambers and promote polarization, rather than the solution-oriented dialogue and deliberation needed to address environmental concerns. Moreover, the current practice of representative democracy can leave individuals feeling powerless to effect change.
Criticism towards democracy should not be a rejection of democracy per se, but it should see how do we reform our democratic institutions to make them more effective, more democratic, more participative. I think that democracy has huge challenges, and one of them, of course, is that it has been captured in many countries by big money. We have made politics, rather than being a sort of an innovative and imaginative process, that was its original idea of really thinking of a different future and being able to create it collectively. It has become a game of, blogs, bots, sound bites, advertising, without much of a dialogue sometimes, cocooning in our own small nests. And I think we need to see how we change this and free our institutions so that democracy does work.
Sustainability and prosperity can coexist if we manage to address these drivers of incompatibility. Before we hear the opinion of our experts, which of these drivers do you feel would be the most impactful to address, and what opportunities do you see to do so?